right. Okay, so let me go ahead and get started. All right. I want to first give my greetings. May peace and power elevation be to everybody out there. And before I get started, I want to start off reading a quote from this book. But first and foremost, I would like to pay my condolences to a brother who just recently passed away. He was one of the chairman of the new Black Panther Party. His name was Hashim Nzinga. Hashim Nzinga recently passed away. So we would like to so I would like to give my condolences out and pay my respect to him and his family. May he continue to be in the spirits of the ancestors. May the ancestor be his guiding light as he entered into the realm. So may he rest in peace. All right. So also, let's go ahead and get started with this quote right here from this book called Urban Philosophy, which deals with thoughts and behavior system, which is written by Brother Imhotep Izi Fatu. Uh, One of my good book. Okay. So we're going to start off with a chapter 3. It's called Operational Components. All right. And so in chapter 3, it says, we study to cultivate learning. This requires a great deal of study, reflection, and application. For in the final analysis, our studies should inform us, which should ultimately contribute to a new form of us, meaning our studies should help to reform us into something new and improved. If our studies fail to achieve this, they're useless. Therefore, a misuse of time. Whatever is studied should be of a personal benefit to your social, emotional, spiritual, and intellectual growth and development, so you can ultimately be a benefit to the African community. This means there cannot be any random and cursory studies. This means there cannot be. Your studies must be purposeful, selective, and thorough, which demands discipline and diligence. A certain degree of commitment to productive development is required. Therefore, we cannot be lazy in the mind or neglectful of our studies. If we are to reap maximum rewards from our studies must be internally motivated and not externally motivated. We must possess an internal drive, a desire for self improvement, as opposed to an external push to acquire information. At the core, our studies must be about human growth and transformation. And that's facts. That's powerful. That's the information. And it's coming from this book right here called The Urban Philosophy, Thought and Behavior System. So please check this book out. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's get into the concept of what today's topic is. So today's topic is called ASALH. ASALH deals with the Association Studies of African American Life and History. All right, so this study group, if you will, which it started off as a study group, now it's a research website, a research team of people from African descendant background. It started off with Carl G. Woodson on this day in 1915. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the history and origin about it. And then from there, I'm going to give my thoughts and give some commentaries in between. All right. So I'm going to show you guys some sources that I have that you can look up, and I will expound on it. All right. So here's the information right here. Let me pull this up. You can find this on Wikipedia. It's called the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. All right. It's an organization dedicated to the study. It's an organization dedicated to the study and appreciation of African American history. It is a nonprofit organization founded in Chicago, Illinois on September the 9th, 1915, and incorporated in Washington, D.C. on October the 2nd, 1915 as the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History by Carl G. Woodson, William B. Hartgrove, George Cleveland Hall, Alexander L. Jackson, and James E. Stamps. The association is based in Washington, D.C. ASALH was named the Association for the Study of Afro-American Life and History in 1973. Okay. And then it goes down to talk about the mission. So the official mission is to promote, research, preserve, interpret, and disseminate information about Black life, history, and culture to global community. All right. And the official vision is to be the premier Black heritage and learn society with a diverse and inclusive membership supported by a strong network of national and international branches to continue the Woodson legacy. Okay. ASALH created Negro History Week in 1926. Woodson selected the week to coincide with the birthdays of Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln. Each year, Woodson established a national theme for the celebration. Since 1976, ASALH extended the celebration for all of February. And it says the organization published the Journal of African American History, formerly the Journal of Negro History, and the Black History Bulletin, formerly the Negro History Bulletin. In 2005, ASALH established the ASALH Press, reissuing Carl G. Woodson, Miseducation of the Negro. The same year, ASALH established the Woodson Review, a magazine that promotes its annual Black History theme, including it as part of its Black History Kit. In 2005, ASALH discovered a previously unpublished manuscript by its founder, Carl G. Woodson, and published in a special edition as Carl G. Woodson's Appeal, the Lost Manuscript Edition. All right. So it says ASALH is a membership organization with over 25 branches. Okay. So let's look at the conventions. So as you can see, before I go on, the whole purpose of this convention or this organization is to bring about study groups dealing with African American history and the importance of African American history. That's the whole purpose of it. Now, As for Carl G. Woodson, he was a historian. He was a long life historian. He was very passionate about learning about his people and their contribution not only in America but also in the African country as well. So he felt that it was very prevalent for us, for our people, to learn more about where they come from and not be so whitewashed or brainwashed into the European narrative. So he made it very important. So that's one of the reasons why he started the Negro Week, which eventually became the Black History Month. And not to mention, Carl G. Woodson was the mentor and teacher to Dr. John Henry Clark. And Dr. John Henry Clark influenced a lot of people. Not only was Carl G. Woodson that influenced Dr. John, but also Arteria Schomburg, who happened to be Afro and Puerto Rican descent. He also influenced Dr. John Henry Clark. So if we're going to look at all these teachers that we call master teachers, whether it be Dr. Ben, Dr. John G. Jackson, Dr. Clark, or Asa Hiller, all these different people, we got to go back to the person that made it possible. And Carl G. Woodson was one of those people that made it happen. He was the main one that brought the focus of African American history to light. It was him. It was W.E.B. Du Bois. It was so many of them. So without these guys or without these individuals, we would not be able to have the Pan-African studies. We wouldn't be able to have African American histories. We wouldn't even be able to deal with African history alone, because they fought for these things to take place. They fought for these curriculums to be in the colleges and universities. So let me go ahead and continue on. I just wanted to give my thoughts. Okay. So right here, the ASALH Convention. Annually, the organization strives to continue its research focus as well as efforts to share and disseminate historical information for which the organization was founded. One of the major ways the organization focuses its resource in this area is with the ASALH annual convention that takes place in the fall, usually September or October. ASALH hosted its first convention in 1917, 2 years after the organization was founded. At that time, the convention was biennial. During the first convention, Wilson stated the goals of the organization as he saw them. The organization's primary responsibility would be publishing of an historical magazine, researching the achievements of Negroes, directing a home study program, along with writing and publishing books and monographs. Charles Harris Wesley, one of the organization's early developers, was not pleased with the first convention because more race solvers and educators attended than historians, which is in opposition to ASALH's vision as a historical research society. And it says, each year, the location of the convention rotates to a major U.S. city and coincides with the annual Black History theme. The 2008 convention took place in Birmingham, Alabama, and the 2009 convention took place in Cincinnati, Ohio. The 2010 convention was held in Raleigh, North Carolina, and the 2011 convention was held in Richmond, Virginia. The 2012 convention will be held from September 26 to September 30 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. According to the association, the annual convention draws over 1,000 participants. At the convention, ASALH organizes plenary sessions and workshops, facilitates scholarly presentations selected from the call for papers, sponsors a Black history tour of famous landmarks in the city, and hosts a youth day for high school students in the area. All right. And then it also goes down to derived organization. Numerous organizations have been risen out of ASALH's conventions. One such example is the Association of Black Women Historians, found in 1977. ASALH Convention in Washington, D.C. ABWH was founded by three women participants: Rosalind Tarbong Penn, Eleanor Smith, and Elizabeth Parker. The National Council of Black Studies was also conceptualized at a ASALH convention. All right, and so here are the references at the bottom if you want to look up more information. Okay, so yeah, that's very important. So yeah, that's important to be able to know that this is how the research study of African American history came about. So again, Carl G. Woodson and his colleagues made it prevalent for many of us. So all these research teams that you see out there, not just in what we call the woke community, but just the research team in general regard to Black people, just know that these group of individuals who came before us have made it possible, have opened up that door of opportunity, have kicked down the door and said, you know what, we're going to take over. This is what we're going to do, and this is how it's going to be done. All right. So I'm going to show you guys some sources here. This has come from the University of Chicago Press Journal, ASALH, Association for the Study of African American Life and History. All right. And it says the Journal of African American History, winter 2003, volume 88, number 1. And it says Black Women, Carl G. Woodson and the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, 1915 to 1950. All right, so here's some information right here. And it says Black Women, Carl G. Woodson, the Study Association, Negro Life History by Piero Gallio Dabovie. All right, so I'm going to read. Okay, I'm going to read the first paragraph. It says Woodson himself lacked background for broad historical writing. He was almost a contemptuous of emotion. He had limited human context and sympathies. Several months after his death, W.E.B. Du Bois concluded this harsh criticism of the founder of the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, adding he had no conception of the place for a woman in creation. What Du Bois may have meant by the last point is unclear and begs for further elaboration. Was Du Bois criticizing Woodson for supposedly ignoring Black women's role in history? In 1991, almost 4 decades after Woodson's death, historian Patricia Morton elaborated on Du Bois' provocative comment. She argued that starting in 19th century as and well into the second half of the 20th, many Black male historians have contributed to white society's most detrimental views, myth, and stereotype of Black womanhood. For Morton, however, Wilson's views about Black women are harder to pinpoint. Though she notes that Woodson at times defended Black womanhood, she stresses that the father of Negro history largely omitted slave women and Black female activists from his work. At the same time, she praises Woodson for challenging conventional orthodoxies, specifically for deconstruction some of the myths pertaining to Black women. Woodson dared to argue that in her continuing mammy roles as a domestic worker for whites, the Afro-American woman had been done a disservice by her exclusion from the Black author story of history. Morton continued. Even more unusual was his neat recognition that Black author scholarship would be restricted by the racist myth of the past. Morton also applauded Woodson for highlighting the exceptional role played by black washerwomen. Wilson reconstruction showed that what racist discourse had made of the mammy need not determine what Afro American scholarship could discover about Afro American women. And then it goes on right here to say, how did Carl G. Wilson portray black women in his scholarship? How were black women discussed in the pages of the Journal of Negro History from 1916 until 1950? What type of contribution did black women make to the Journal of the Negro History Bulletin? Did Wilson conform to the gender conventions as did other black male historians and scholars of his time? Did his writings and programs perpetuate or challenging derogatory myths and stereotypes about black women? And what were the various roles played by black women in ASALH during Wilson's tenure as director? The place of women in Wilson's scholarship and program is much more complex and interesting than either Du Bois or Morton indicates. Then it goes on to say that Wilson's views of black women may appear to have been at times ambiguous, but overall they were quite progressive when compared to other black male scholars and historians of his time. While he did not publish monographs devoted to black women or fight actively and openly for women's rights, he did publish several important articles in the 1930s which sought to reconstruct the prevailing negative images of black womanhood. He welcomed black women with open arms into a movement very dear to him. He also supported and celebrated their efforts at legitimizing and popularizing the study of African American life and history. Black females teachers, club women, librarians, amateur historians, and social activists played vital roles in the activities of the ASALH, especially by the late 1930s when the Negro History Bulletin was inaugurated. The contents of the bulletin show a Wilson who valued the contribution of black women. Black women's place in Wilson's scholarship can be interpreted as one of his most important yet largely overlooked contributions to African American history and the historical profession. In order to appreciate the place of women in Wilson's thoughts and activity, one must carefully examine his scholarship beyond the surface and revisit the foundations and day-to-day activities of the association, especially after the 1930s. In many regards, Wilson was far ahead of his time in acknowledging aspects of black women's history, leadership skills, and exceptional contribution to the ongoing African American struggle for for rights and justice. His advanced vision and program made him a unique black male leader and scholar during the first half of the 20th century. Though molded by the gender norms of his age, contrary to Du Bois' limit assessment, Wilson in many ways challenged the masculinist ideologies of his time. All right, so that's this information right here. And if you guys want to check it out, you can go ahead and check it out yourself. So that's the article. So Mr. Wilson was accused of Mr. Carl G. Wilson was accused of being very being sexist towards black women. So there was those who felt like he didn't give black women enough credit or enough opportunity to be able to contribute when it comes to the history of African Americans. But at the same time, Carl G. Wilson did do so, but he didn't do it to the extent as far as giving them more dominion or power. But he did acknowledge the black woman, and he did fight against the negative stereotype about black women being mammies and Jezebels and whatnot. And so as of today, there's different terminologies that is being used to describe black women. But at that time, black women were identified as Jezebels, mammies, and bed winches and all this other stuff. So yeah. And then here's some more. All right, here's some more scholarship information right here. It's from the University of Illinois Press, Immigration and Ethnic History Society. All right, and it's called Commons Ethnic Historical Society and Association for the Study of Afro-American Life and History, Robert L. Harris Jr. Let's see when this article was written. It was written in 1994 during the wintertime in the source of Journal of American Ethnic History, Volume 13, Number 2. All right. And so you can find out more information about this if you want to. Real quick, let me read this. It says, in his categorization of ethnic historical society in the United States, John Higham cautions against the multiplication of disconnected ethnic voices. He worries that such organizations are not sufficiently strong or cohesive or sufficiently national-minded to have much outreach beyond the group itself. Hickham's concern reflects his reservation about the growth of a new particularism that turns the nation's progress toward pluralistic integration. He has warned that the country is becoming increasingly fragmented along class, racial, class, gender, and ethnic lines. To counterbalance the nation's diversity, he has called for pluralistic integration that upholds the validity of a common culture to which all individuals have access, while sustaining the efforts of minority to preserve and to enhance their own integrity. All right. So that's that source of information that can be found. But anyways, again, I want to go back and pay my respect to brother Hashim Nzinga. So may he rest in peace, and may we all be able to keep those who have put in the work and who have done their work and diligent work while they was on the earth in mind, and just know that tomorrow ain't promised today, and a lot that's going on as of right now, especially with this COVID-19. We don't know what's going to take place next. So do all that you can while you're here. Make it worth your while, because you never know what's happening. And we got so many goals in mind. We got so many things that we plan on doing, but we may not be able to get the opportunity to fulfill those goals. We may not be able to get the opportunity to see those goals ever happening. So with that being said, this your girl Tiffany, and I am out. And until next time, may peace and power elevation be to all of you. Thank you. Deuces. All right. Take it easy.